He was gone in a matter of minutes. My own son, snatched from our front yard in broad daylight. If anyone had told me a week ago that I would be at the center of a kidnapping case in our quiet, tree-lined suburb, I'd have laughed. Even as a district attorney, I never imagined a crime so brazen could strike right where I live. But that's exactly how I found myself. Frantic, heart-pounding, scanning our meticulously manicured street for any sign of Danny, only to discover that it was no stranger or hardened criminal who had taken him. It was my new neighbor, someone from our homeowners association board, who decided, in her infinite authority, that my son wasn't following the rules. I'd moved our family to Brantwood Estates 3 months before. We'd relocated from the city to give Danny a safer, friendlier environment. My wife, Sharon, and I had been concerned about raising a child amid the chaos of downtown. There was always a wail of sirens echoing through the night, and a frenzy that never slept. Everyone told us that, in the suburbs, you'd find well-kept streets, neighborly camaraderie, and the pleasant hum of children's laughter in front yards. For a while, it seemed like they were right. Brantwood Estates boasted wide sidewalks perfect for bicycles, towering oaks that offered pockets of shade, and well-lit streetlights for the evenings. It had a reputation as a model neighborhood, largely maintained by the notoriously strict HOA. The organization was run by a cadre of members, but one person held the real power: Linda Graves, whose unspoken nickname was Queen of the HOA. Residents referred to Linda behind her back as Karen for the way she always seemed to stand guard, arms crossed and brow furrowed, passing judgment on everyone else's lawns, shutters, and doormats. We'd heard a few rumors about Linda before we officially moved in. She supposedly wielded the HOA rulebook like a sword, citing codes on everything from mailbox post height to the color of your curtains. But I didn't pay much attention. I figured, how bad could one pushy neighbor really be? We planned to maintain a tidy house, mow our lawn regularly, and pick up after ourselves. That was enough for me, so it should have been enough for her. At first, we coexisted without crossing paths. I was busy at work, especially after my promotion to district attorney. My focus was on managing the office, juggling sensitive legal cases, and trying to set the tone for a more just community. Sharon was organizing our new home, making it a warm, inviting place with fresh paint, new curtains, and personal mementos on every shelf. Danny was loving the new environment. He had just turned 9, was excited to explore, and felt proud we'd trusted him to enjoy the front yard alone, within eye's reach. One late afternoon, I was on the porch, reading through case files. Danny had discovered a small dirt patch near the sidewalk. He was crouched low, enthralled by worms and roly-polies. I caught myself smiling as I watched him. This was precisely what we'd wanted for him. A chance to feel safe, to roam a little, to be the curious boy he was without the constant hustle and threat of city life. That's when I noticed a figure in a bright, floral blouse marching down the sidewalk. She was short, no taller than 5'3", but her stride radiated the authority of a drill sergeant. She stopped in front of our lawn, hands on her hips, scanning Danny as though he were an eyesore. I cleared my throat and stood, stepping off the porch. "Hello there. I'm Owen Moore," I introduced politely, offering a wave. "We're new to the neighborhood." "Linda Graves," she said curtly, her eyes not leaving Danny, who was now staring back, perplexed. "He's got quite a mess there," she remarked. "Is he planning to reseed that dirt patch? Because HOA policy states that we don't allow permanent changes without prior approval." I bit back an incredulous laugh. "He's just playing with some bugs. We're not planning a landscaping overhaul." Linda's eyes narrowed. "There's also a noise curfew. Screaming children can be unsettling to neighbors." I want to tell her how bizarre her complaints sounded. 5 in the afternoon was hardly the witching hour. But I simply nodded, trying to stay polite. My father had always taught me that being the bigger person often meant swallowing your pride. "I'll keep him quiet," I said evenly. "Have a nice day." The look on her face told me she wasn't accustomed to being dismissed so lightly. She lingered for a second, presumably deciding whether to scold me further. Then, with a harumph, she continued down the sidewalk. I felt a flash of relief. I hoped this was the end of it, just the usual neighborhood friction that would blow over. Unfortunately, I had no idea this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I caught glimpses of Linda peering at our house. Sometimes she slowed her car as she passed, leaning forward to examine if our lawn was mowed to the proper height. Sometimes she paused in her evening walks to count how many garden ornaments we had out front. The HOA rules limited it to 4. I shrugged it off, not wanting to pick a fight. After all, I've been elected to uphold the law, not wage war over miniature windmills or decorative stepping stones. Then, the conflict escalated in ways I never predicted. One morning, I found a note tucked under our windshield wiper that read, "This is a quiet neighborhood. Keep children contained." Another day, I got an email from the HOA citing excessive noise and potential damage to common areas. It was ludicrous. Danny had been practicing soccer in our yard, on our private property, no less. Yet Linda threatened to fine us for damaging the grass. I tried to be civil, but as my frustration mounted, I also felt something more sinister, a growing sense of danger. It was in the way Linda stared too long at Danny when he was out playing, in the way her face hardened when I suggested that kids needed to breathe fresh air and have fun. I was so busy brushing it off, I didn't realize she was already planning her next move, an act so shocking it would change everything. A few Saturdays later, Sharon planned a get-together for some of our new neighbors. We'd invited people from up and down the block, hoping to foster friendships and show we were looking to be part of the community. The early summer sun shone brightly, and I fired up the grill. A gentle breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass. It felt like an idyllic day, a momentary reprieve from the tension with Linda. The event started smoothly. One neighbor, Valerie, brought over homemade brownies. Another, Roger, introduced me to his wife and their energetic Labrador. We chatted about local schools, upcoming street repairs, and the best pizza joint just outside the neighborhood. The conversation was easy light. No one mentioned the HOA. No one mentioned Linda. For a moment, I half believed the gossip about her was overblown. Then, as if on cue, Linda arrived. She hadn't been invited, but there she was, stepping onto our lawn with a tight, artificial smile plastered across her face. She wore a starched white blouse and khaki slacks, an outfit that screamed business more than party. Immediately, an uneasy hush fell over our small gathering. "Nice to see you all," Linda announced, her voice dripping with false cheer. The neighbors exchanged looks, uncertain how to respond. Linda held up a folder, waving it like a prop. "I brought copies of the updated HOA guidelines," she said. "Thought you might all want to refresh yourselves, especially about the policies on large gatherings." Her gaze flickered over my grill to the folding chairs on the lawn, then finally landed on Danny, who was chasing Roger's Labrador around the yard. "And of course, noise control measures," she added with a little cough. My blood boiled, but I kept my composure. "You're free to join us, Linda. There's plenty of food. But this is just a casual, neighborly get-together, while within acceptable hours." "Acceptable hours," she repeated. "And yet I'm hearing a lot of noise. We have children and a dog playing. That's not illegal, nor is it against any rational HOA rules," I replied, striving to keep my voice steady. "Children need structure," Linda said in a patronizing tone. Then she turned her attention to Danny. "And we have designated areas for certain activities, like our park or the communal basketball court. Private lawns aren't playgrounds." Her eyes snapped back to me. "I'd hate for you to get cited for damage again." The tension was thick enough to choke on. I sensed my neighbors shifting uncomfortably, not wanting to draw Linda's ire. Sharon slipped her hand into mine, giving me a gentle squeeze. I took a breath, deciding once more not to make a scene. "Noted," I said. "Thank you for the reminder." Linda handed out her printed guidelines, each page neatly stapled, as though punishing us with a pop quiz. She lingered in the yard for a few more minutes, sipping water from a plastic cup, hardly speaking to anyone. Then, as abruptly as she'd come, she left. "What's her deal?" Valerie whispered once Linda was out of earshot. "She's always been intense," Roger said delicately, as if fearful Linda might pop out from behind a hedge. "She's taken protecting the neighborhood standards to a whole new level." I forced a laugh, wanted to lighten the mood. Well, let's not let Linda spoil the day. We carried on with the barbecue and enjoyed a few more hours of conversation and laughter. But an undercurrent of unease had seeped in. I caught myself checking the street every so often, half expecting Linda to reappear, brandishing some new complaint. When you're district attorney, you learn to trust your gut. Mine was telling me Linda's interest in my family, and specifically in Danny, was far from over. Sure enough, that evening, Sharon found a handwritten note slipped through our mail slot. It read, "No more unsupervised children outside. If you can't keep an eye on your son, we will." It wasn't signed, but there was no doubt who wrote it. I showed it to Sharon. Her eyes widened in alarm. Does she mean she'll call Child Protective Services? Or is it just an empty threat? I couldn't be certain, but an idea struck me. Linda didn't know my profession yet. I'd purposely kept a low profile, not wanting to intimidate anyone in the neighborhood with my job title. There had been no reason to announce I was the new district attorney. But now, that anonymity might be working against me. She seemed to think we were just an average family she could bully. I should set her straight, I muttered. But I worry if I confront her directly, she'll escalate. People like Linda feed off conflict. Sharon nodded, pressing the note back into my hand. Maybe we should keep Danny inside for a while, just until things calm down, she said, her voice trembling. I hate to do that, but this is getting out of hand. My stomach twisted. We moved here so Danny could have more freedom, not less. But I saw the fear in my wife's eyes. So I agreed, temporarily. We told Danny he needed to ask us before going outside. He was confused but went along with it. For a few days, it seemed to work. The street was quiet. Linda was nowhere to be found. I started to hope that maybe she'd realized how irrational she'd been. Then, in a moment's inattention, the worst happened. A week later, I was home on a Thursday afternoon, reviewing briefs for an upcoming trial. Sharon had run a quick errand to the pharmacy. Danny was supposed to be in his room, playing a video game. I stepped outside to grab the mail and sign for a package. When I came back, Danny was gone. Panic is a strange thing. It surges in your chest like a geyser, but the rest of your mind tries to stay rational. I dropped my stack of mail and dashed through the house, calling Danny's name. Every room was empty. No sign of him in the backyard, either. My heart pounded as I checked the garage. Sometimes he liked to dig through boxes of old toys we stored there. He wasn't there, either. I texted Sharon, "Is Danny with you?" Her reply was instant. No, why? I didn't want to alarm her yet, but there was no avoiding it. He's not in the house. I'll check around the neighborhood. My first thought, maybe Danny just forgot the rule and went exploring outside. It had only been a few minutes since I'd seen him. I sprinted to the sidewalk, calling his name. The neighbor next door, Mrs. Billings, was pruning her roses. "Have you seen Danny?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked concerned. "Not since yesterday, Owen. Is he missing?" I forced a smile that felt all wrong on my face. He probably went exploring. I'll find him. My gut was screaming that something was off. Danny was old enough to know not to wander far, and after Linda's threats, he'd been quite obedient about staying inside. Sure, 9-year-olds can be impulsive, but the timing felt sinister. I jogged around the block, checking the small park. No trace of Danny. I approached every mother, every couple walking a dog. No one had seen him. Fear was crawling under my skin. After the second loop around the cul-de-sac, I made a decision. Call the police. My mind raced as the phone rang. How embarrassing, in a way. Here I was, the district attorney, calling in an emergency for my own missing child. But my pride didn't matter. I wanted the cavalry, no matter how soon. Just as I was about to finish my conversation with dispatch, I spotted Linda. She was standing on her porch, arms folded, watching me with a small, smug expression. I ended the call and marched toward her, adrenaline taking over. "Linda," I shouted, voice echoing through the quiet street. "Have you seen Danny?" She pursed her lips. Why would I see him? I'm not a babysitter. My chest tightened with anger and a creeping sense of dread. He's missing. I'm searching everywhere. Did he come by here? Linda stared at me, her gaze cool. I haven't seen him, but maybe he got tired of being cooped up. Children need structure, remember? There was a flicker in her eyes, something like satisfaction. It triggered every alarm bell in my head. "Linda, if you know anything, She huffed dramatically, cutting me off. Don't accuse me of anything untoward. I'd advise you to watch your words. I'm president of this homeowners association. I have a reputation to maintain. Before I could push her further, the faint sound of sirens reached us. My chest ached with relief, knowing the police were on their way. But as I turned, Linda leaned in close, her voice low. This neighborhood has standards. If you can't protect your child, perhaps someone else had to step in. She looked at me expectantly, as if waiting for a reaction. But before I could respond, she walked back into her house, shutting the door behind her. The police arrived. 2 squad cars, lights flashing, but no sirens. A young officer hopped out, recognized me immediately, and addressed me formally. Mr. District Attorney, sir. His eyes were wide with concern. We'll do everything we can. Any sign of foul play? I told them everything, though I left out the part about Linda's threatening notes for the moment, wanting to keep personal biases out of the initial statement. They took down the details, Danny's height, clothing, last known location. Within minutes, they started canvassing the neighborhood. Sharon pulled up, pale-faced, and rushed into my arms. We'll find him, I promised, though my heart thundered with fear. It wasn't long before some of the neighbors formed a search party, combing yards and alleys. As night fell, my hopes sank further. I recalled Linda's cryptic words. Perhaps someone else had to step in. She sounded almost proud. Could she really have taken my son? Eventually, the senior officer, a man named Detective Oliver, approached me. We'd gone door to door. No one saw Danny leave on his own. But I spoke to Linda Graves, he said quietly, glancing toward her house down the street. She said she saw a dark SUV in front of your house around the time Danny disappeared. She claims the driver might have been a stranger. I felt my fists clench. A dark SUV? That was the best Linda could do. She was the one who always bragged about memorizing every car on the block. If an unknown vehicle had been idling outside, she would have reported it to the police immediately, or at least slapped a warning note on it for illegal parking. It was a blatant lie, or a calculated diversion. I grabbed Detective Oliver by the arm, my voice low. Linda threatened us. She slipped notes under our door, telling us to keep Danny inside, or she would. She singled him out for weeks. I'm telling you, check her house. Oliver scratched his neck uncomfortably. Do you have proof? A note? Witnesses? I nodded. Yes, I have the notes. She's been harassing us. And she was the last person I saw today, right before I realized Danny was gone. Oliver's expression shifted, becoming more official. Let's take a look at your evidence. We'll see if we have probable cause to get a warrant. Rage twisted in my gut. The idea that I would need a warrant to search for my own missing child felt surreal. But this was the law, the same law I'd sworn to uphold. You can't just break down someone's door because of a hunch, even if that hunch is screaming that Linda is responsible. Sharon clung to me, tears streaking her face. What if she's hiding him in there? She whispered. What if we lose time? What if she hurts him? I held her tighter, the pit in my stomach growing. They'll search soon, I assured her. But inside, I was seething, already formulating a plan. No matter what it took, I would find a way to bring Danny home safely. I was done letting Linda use technicalities and half-baked rules to torment us. She'd shown her true colors, and I was about to show her mine. By midnight, the police had set up a makeshift command center in our living room. Detectives studied the notes Linda had left, photographing the evidence. Sharon and I were each interviewed separately, recounting every interaction we'd had with her. My neighbors provided statements about Linda's odd, controlling behavior. Valerie mentioned the times Linda had followed her teenage son around the block, berating him for riding his skateboard too loudly. Another neighbor recalled Linda threatening to tow someone's car for being an inch onto the grass. There was a pattern of harassment, but no direct proof linking Linda to Danny's disappearance. Yet, tension simmered. I watched the officers carefully, the same way they were watching me. They knew who I was, knew I was used to being in control, giving orders in a courtroom. Here I was pacing, powerless, desperate. Detective Oliver stepped aside with me. We're going to request a warrant, he said. But it could take some time. How much time? I demanded. Judge Howell is on call for emergencies. I can. Oliver held up a hand to stop me. We're following procedure. If you leverage your position as DA, it could compromise the case. We'll do this the right way. I clenched my jaw. Technically, he was correct. Any hint that I was abusing my office could jeopardize prosecution. I forced myself to comply. Fine, I said quietly. But hurry. At 2 a.m., we received a call. The warrant was approved. A knot of relief and terror coiled in my gut. Was I really about to raid my neighbor's home? Searching for my kidnapped son? By 2:30 a.m., a handful of officers and I approached Linda's house, accompanied by a locksmith ready to open the door if Linda refused. When we knocked, she answered, hair disheveled, looking outraged at our presence. "Is this some kind of witch hunt?" she hissed. "How dare you barge in at this hour?" Detective Oliver stepped forward, brandishing the warrant. "Step aside, Ms. Graves. We're conducting a search related to the disappearance of Danny Moore." Her eyes sparked. For a moment, I thought she might physically fight us. Instead, she snatched the warrant and scanned it, her lips twisting. Unbelievable. This is harassment. But she stepped aside. The officers began searching every corner. I hovered near the front entrance, nails digging into my palms. Sharon stood next to me, trembling. Room by room, closet by closet, they scanned the premises. Linda followed them like a furious phantom, complaining about civil liberties and threatening to sue for defamation. Then the officers reached the basement door. It was locked. One of them produced a small metal tool and carefully picked it. It creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase. Two officers descended, flashlights bobbing. Linda suddenly rushed forward, but Oliver blocked her. "You can't go down there," she shrieked. "That's my private space." "Move aside," Oliver ordered, voice firm. My heart thundered. Sharon gripped my hand until it hurt. We waited, breath bated, listening for any sign. After a tense moment, one of the officers called out, "All clear, just a workshop." They emerged, shaking their heads. "No Danny." It felt like a punch to the gut. Linda glared at me, triumph flashing in her eyes. "Well, you've had your fun. Now get out." She looked around at the officers. "I'll be filing a formal complaint with the HOA and my lawyer." Sharon let out a choked sob, and I steadied her. We stepped out onto the porch, the night air cold against my damp skin. Detective Oliver locked eyes with me. "We'll keep looking elsewhere," he said softly, though I saw doubt creeping across his face. Linda's front door slammed behind us. Outside, the neighbors had gathered, wrapped in robes and pajamas, watching the spectacle with wide eyes. I felt a tidal wave of despair crash over me. Where could Danny be? An hour later, the police decided to widen their search. At sunrise, I collapsed onto my living room couch, exhausted, my mind racing through every possibility. Kidnapping was rare in our quiet suburb. Stranger abduction was even less likely. My instincts pointed to Linda, but the search turned up nothing. Maybe she hid him somewhere else, or had an accomplice. Was that even plausible? Sharon emerged from the kitchen, her face drawn. "We need rest," she said softly, though the idea of sleep seemed impossible. "You have to stay sharp. If Danny's out there, we need all our strength." I nodded, reluctant. My eyes burned from the tears I wouldn't allow myself to shed. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying Linda's smug expression, the basement search, the tight-lipped officers. At some point, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep. I jolted awake a few hours later to my phone buzzing. An unknown number. I grabbed it instantly, heart hammering. A voice whispered on the other end, "Hello, Mr. Moore." It was a woman's voice, but not Linda's. Someone older, maybe. "If you want her child, you'll have to come get him. Follow my instructions carefully." My hand shook. "Who is this?" I demanded, voice cracking. "I'm the one protecting your son from that woman," the voice said. "You have no idea what Linda is capable of." Then the line went dead. I bolted upright. Sharon rushed over, seeing the panic in my eyes. I told her what the woman said. "She claims she's protecting Danny from Linda," I said, confusion swirling in my head. Another person involved? Another layer to this twisted scenario? Before I could begin a process, the phone buzzed again, this time a text. I opened it to see an address in the next town over, with the words, No police. Just you. I pressed my hand over my mouth, adrenaline flooding me. This was possibly the break we needed, or a trap. I have to go, I told Sharon. If there's a chance Danny's there. She clutched my shirt, eyes fearful. It could be dangerous. You can't just walk in. I considered calling Oliver, but the text explicitly said no police. If I alerted them, and this was legitimate, they might panic and harm Danny. I was a district attorney, though not a vigilante. I typically handled these situations by the book. But this was my son. Every rational code and protocol blurred. I made a decision. I'll go, I said, but I'll tell Oliver once I'm on my way. He can stay nearby in case things go south. That was a compromise, albeit a risky one. Sharon reluctantly agreed, and I sent Oliver a quick text. I have a lead. Next town. We'll share the address once I confirm. I knew he'd be furious, but I had to act now. As I drove, my mind churned. If Linda didn't have Danny, why did the original threats point straight to her? Who was this unknown caller who claimed to be protecting him? The world spun like a puzzle, with crucial pieces missing. But I kept one thing in sight, bringing my son home, no matter what. The address led me to a small, unassuming ranch house on a quiet street. My heart hammered as I parked. The shades were drawn, the lawn slightly overgrown. No cars in the driveway. I stepped out, scanning the surroundings. A million thoughts raced through my mind. Is this a setup? Who lives here? Will I find Danny safe? Then the front door cracked open. A middle-aged woman peeked out, worry etched into her features. She beckoned me inside with quick, agitated gestures. Hurry, she whispered. I crossed the threshold, half expecting an ambush. Instead, I saw a tidy living room stacked with boxes. The woman locked the door behind me. Her hand shook. Your son is okay, she said softly. He's resting. My chest lurched with relief and confusion. Where is he? I demanded. She gestured toward a bedroom. He's asleep. I gave him something to calm him down. He was panicking, asking for you. Anger flared. Why on earth did you take him? How is this protecting him? I was about to storm past her to see Danny, but her next words stopped me cold. I didn't take him. Linda did, she said, but she brought him to me. I'm her aunt. I froze. Linda's aunt? She nodded, her eyes filled with remorse. We share this house, but I live here mostly alone. Linda visits me sometimes. She arrived yesterday, frantic. She said she had to keep a boy hidden for a while because he was being neglected by his parents. She was raving about how they let him roam freely, how the HOA rules were being flouted, that no one was listening to her. She claimed she was saving him from an unsafe environment. My stomach twisted with rage. Unsafe environment, I echoed, my voice dripping with incredulity. She kidnapped my son because he played in our yard. The aunt exhaled shakily. I know it was wrong. I tried to argue with her. But Linda doesn't listen to anyone when she's fixated. And then she left, said she had to go manage the neighborhood situation. So you kept Danny here? My fists were clenched, but I tried to keep my composure. Why not call the police? Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared. Linda said if I told anyone, she'd claim I was behind it all and that I'd go to prison. I didn't know what to do until I found out who you were. I saw a news story about you, realized you were the new district attorney. That's when I got your number from Linda's phone. I planned to return Danny to you, but I had to be cautious. I stared at her, torn between fury and gratitude. Where is he now? She led me to a small bedroom at the end of the hallway. The door creaked open, revealing Danny curled up on a twin bed, a blanket pulled over him. My heart nearly burst. I rushed to him, gently pressing my hand to his forehead. He stirred, blinking in confusion. Dad? He murmured, voice quivering. He sat up, recognition flooding his eyes. Dad, she said you didn't want me anymore, that you. No, I swept him into a tight embrace, tears burning my eyes. Not for a second, Danny. I've been looking everywhere for you. Anger flared again at Linda's manipulative cruelty, telling a child his parents didn't want him. Who does that? He buried his face in my shoulder, sobbing in relief. My throat constricted. Let's go home, I whispered, though a part of me bristled at the thought of Linda walking free. I turned to the aunt, who stood watching with trembling hands. You should be ashamed, I said flatly. But thank you for doing the right thing now. She nodded, tears falling. Linda's unwell. She's always been obsessive, but I've never seen her cross a line like this. I'm sorry. I have to call the police, I said, reaching for my phone. My hand shook with the realization that this was about to get complicated. Linda's aunt might face charges as an accomplice, but the person I really wanted was Linda. As I dialed, I heard a sudden crash from the living room. The aunt gasped, and I spun around to see the front door splintered open. Linda stood there, eyes wild, holding a small metal bar. My adrenaline spiked. She'd followed me here, or realized her aunt had turned on her. "What are you doing, Aunt Carol?" Linda shrieked, her voice echoing. "You traitor! That boy needs to be taught discipline. He's a menace to our neighborhood." She caught sight of Danny, clinging to me. Her lips curled. "You have no idea what kind of father he is. You're letting him run around with no respect for authority." I stepped forward, placing Danny behind me. "Linda, it's over," I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. "The police are on their way. You need to put that bar down." Her face twitched with rage. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I enforce the rules. You all need to learn. Danny is my son," I said, voice rising. "You kidnapped him. You've broken the law. Now the law is going to take you down." She let out a guttural shriek and lunged forward, bar raised. Instinct took over. I pushed Danny aside and grabbed Linda's arm, twisting it away from me. She fought like a wildcat, screaming about how I was undermining her authority. Within seconds, her aunt and I managed to wrench the bar away. Linda collapsed to the floor, sobbing, her eyes brimming with hateful tears. "You can't take him," she hissed. "He'll ruin everything. Children like him." I pinned her arms until I heard the wail of approaching sirens. Officers burst in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Linda was cuffed, ranting and raving until the moment they dragged her away. Danny clung to me, tears on his cheeks, but we were safe. Finally safe. Detective Oliver arrived, took in the scene, and gave me a nod. "We got her," he said quietly. I cradled Danny in my arms, a swirl of relief and anger coursing through me. Linda would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I make sure of it. In that moment, the roles reversed. I wasn't just the district attorney. I was a father demanding justice for my child. As the sun rose again, Danny and I stood in front of the house, waiting for Sharon to arrive. She flew out of her car and hugged Danny so tightly he squealed. Tears of joy and relief streamed down her face. We watched Linda being driven away in a squad car, her eyes vacant as she realized exactly who she'd challenged. She tried to take the law into her own hands, never expecting that law to be me. Later that week, the official charges were brought: kidnapping, false imprisonment, child endangerment. Linda's aunt cooperated fully in exchange for leniency, detailing Linda's plan to re-educate Danny until we supposedly learned our lesson. The HOA swiftly removed Linda from her position, and neighbors breathed a collective sigh of relief. As for us, we decided not to move again. Running wasn't the answer. Instead, we turned our energy into strengthening community bonds. The board elected a new president who understood the difference between common-sense guidelines and tyrannical micromanagement. I made a point to talk with neighbors, reassuring them that we could remain proud of Brantwood Estates without living in fear. And Danny? He bounced back, resilient as ever. Children often are. Some nights, he still has nightmares, but Sharon and I hold him close, reminding him he's safe. We found a new sense of gratitude for every ordinary day, every moment of him kicking a soccer ball on our lawn, every carefree laugh. It's a reminder that freedom to play, freedom to be a child, should never be restricted by someone's twisted interpretation of rules. Linda Graves discovered, too late, who she was up against. In her quest to enforce her tyrannical vision, she'd made an enemy in me. And as a district attorney, and more importantly, a father, there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my son. Nothing at all.